I paid for the whole life of a woman and her 2 children. Later they cut me out of their lives, so I left them. Later they begged me. I'm not the kind of person who overshares. I've always kept to myself, worked hard, minded my own business. But today, sitting in my truck with the engine turned off, watching the rain roll down the windshield, I felt like writing this. Maybe because I've read so many other stories and saw pieces of my own in them. Maybe I just need to get this out. My name's Lowell. I'm 42. I drive trucks for a living, have since I was 22. It's a job that gives you a lot of time to think. Sometimes too much. I never married young. I never had kids of my own. I didn't have the kind of upbringing that made me think I'd be good at family stuff. My dad left when I was 9. My mom did her best, but she had her hands full. I figured I'd work, stay out of trouble, save what I could. No dreams of white picket fences or birthday parties. That changed on a Thursday in March, 2016. I was passing through Elmira, New York, stopping to rest and resupply. Duke, my German Shepherd, was with me. He's been with me since he was a pup. Best friend I ever had. Loyal, gentle, smarter than some people I've met. We stopped at a pet store for some food and a new collar. He'd chewed through his old one again. As I stood in the aisle comparing brands, I felt something slam into my legs. Not hard, just sudden. I looked down, expecting maybe a cart, and saw a little boy probably 4 flat on the ground, looking up at me wide-eyed, then giggling like he was in on a joke. Duke, bless him, wagged his tail and nudged the kid with his nose, like he was checking if he was all right. Caleb, a voice called out. A woman came rushing over, pushing a stroller. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Hair pulled into a bun, tired eyes, a worn hoodie. She was apologizing before she even reached us. I'm so sorry, he's been running since we walked in. Caleb, what did we say about running? It's okay, I said, helping the boy up. He's all right. She looked relieved. The baby in the stroller stirred, little girl, probably 1 or 2. That was Margaret. We talked for a few minutes, just casual, about the dog, the kids. She noticed Duke had a service vest. I explained he wasn't official, just trained well. She laughed, said she wished she had a dog that obedient. Caleb was already petting Duke like they were old friends. Something about her caught me. She wasn't flirtatious or flustered, just worn. Like she carried something heavy, but didn't want anyone to notice. Before we parted, she thanked me again. Caleb said goodbye to Duke 3 times. On a whim, I offered to let them walk around the store with us. We ended up talking for another 30 minutes. She wore a small Marine Widow pin on her purse. I didn't say anything about it then. Later, when I dropped Duke off at a rest stop and checked my phone, I had a new text. It was from her. Thanks again for letting us join you. Caleb's still talking about Duke. We started meeting up whenever I passed through town. At first, it was just coincidence. I'd time my breaks to when she was free, and we'd grab a coffee. Sometimes I'd walk Duke with her and the kids. Caleb was a ball of energy, and Grace, the baby, slowly started to come out of her shell. One morning, after a particularly snowy run-up from Pennsylvania, she met me with hand warmers and a thermos of coffee. Said she figured I could use it. No one had ever done something like that for me, not without expecting something in return. I asked about the pin she always carried. That's when she told me about Alan, her late husband. Died in Afghanistan the year Grace was born. A roadside bomb. He'd been on his 2nd deployment. Her voice changed when she talked about him, not weepy, just reverent. I respected that. I never tried to insert myself. I figured she needed a friend. So that's what I tried to be. Months passed. I rerouted more and more to be near them. Started taking short hauls. Money wasn't as good, but I didn't care. I started picking up small things they needed, a new coat for Caleb, groceries now and then. She always tried to push back, but she didn't have to say much. I could see the struggle in her face. Then one evening in early fall, I dropped by their place with a box of groceries and found Caleb waiting at the window. He waved frantically and shouted, "Dad's here." I froze. Margaret didn't correct him. I'd never been called Dad before. The moment Caleb said it, something shifted in me. It was casual for him, a 4-year-old, caught in a moment of joy. But for me, it hit like a freight truck. Margaret caught my eyes as she opened the door. She didn't apologize or correct him. She just said, "You're early," with a smile that was more tired than surprised. That was the night I stayed over for the first time. We didn't sleep together, not like that. I slept on the couch. Duke took the floor next to me, as if he sensed the unspoken significance. Margaret thanked me for the groceries, the help, and just being there. That was all. What started as occasional visits turned into a routine. I began renting a small place just outside town so I wouldn't have to sleep in my truck or on their couch anymore. My time on the road shrank. I started picking up more local deliveries, taking fewer overnights. The long hauls that once defined my life became exceptions, not the norm. The kids were growing on me in ways I couldn't have expected. Grace, now toddling around, would reach for me whenever she was tired or upset. Caleb wanted to show me everything: his art, his toys, his new sneakers. Duke became part of their family just as naturally. He was in every game, every walk, every bedtime routine. I'd come over and find Caleb asleep on the couch, his head resting on Duke's side. At some point, Margaret and I stopped pretending we were just friends. It wasn't a dramatic moment. Just quiet understanding, like a key slipping into a lock that had been waiting. We got married in the spring of the following year. A courthouse ceremony. No guests, no photos. She wore a blue dress. I wore a clean shirt and jeans. The clerk asked if we wanted to exchange rings. We didn't. We exchanged promises instead, quiet ones, built not on romance, but on stability. I thought that was enough. We bought a small house with a fenced yard. I used part of my savings to pay off Margaret's old debts and open a college fund for the kids. Not big amounts, but enough to start something. Margaret cried when she saw the bank receipts. "You didn't have to," she said. "I know," I answered. Duke took to the new home instantly. He had a backyard now, a corner on the porch where the sun hit just right, and 2 kids who loved him more than anything. I was working shorter routes, coming home by dinner. I fixed the leaky sink, planted a tree in the backyard, helped Caleb learn to ride his bike. Grace started preschool, and she'd run to me with finger paintings she made just for Daddy. It still felt strange to hear. But it also felt right. Other drivers joked about me being tied down, about skipping the high-paying runs. I'd smile, nod, and show them photos of the kids, the dog, the tree in our backyard. I had a life. A family. Something I never thought I'd deserve. But even then, small cracks had begun to show. Margaret never changed her last name. I didn't push it. She said it was for the kids, to keep them tied to Alan's legacy. I understood. Or I tried to. When people asked about me, she'd introduce me as Caleb and Grace's stepdad. That word, stepdad, always sounded like a disclaimer. Like a footnote. Sometimes I'd ask if she had a picture of our wedding. She'd say she didn't like how she looked. But she had plenty of Alan. One on her nightstand. One in the living room. One in Grace's room. She didn't speak of him often, but when she did, it was always in the most respectful tone. Alan would have liked this house, or Alan always wanted to plant a tree too. At first, it didn't bother me. But over time, it felt like I was renting space in someone else's home. Still, the kids loved me. That was what I clung to. Caleb and I worked on small engine repairs together. Grace asked me to read her bedtime stories, even when she got old enough to read them herself. She'd say, "It sounds better when you do it." That was all the validation I needed. We weren't rich, but we were stable. The house was paid off. The truck was mine. I had a good rhythm: work, home, help with homework, walk Duke, sleep. And then, something changed. It was subtle at first. Caleb, now a teenager, stopped calling me Dad. At first, it was just Lowell. Then sometimes nothing at all. Grace became quieter around me. Started locking her door, staying longer at friends' houses. Margaret said it was just adolescence. "They're finding themselves," she'd say. "It's normal." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. The real unraveling didn't happen all at once. It came in pieces, slow, quiet, and dismissible if I didn't want to see them. But they were there. Like loose tiles on a roof you ignore until the rain comes pouring in. I remember coming home early from a 2-day delivery. I'd rushed to make it to Caleb's last football game of the season. I walked in, expecting a welcome. Duke ran to me like always, but I heard voices from the kitchen. Caleb was there with two of his friends. Yeah, he said, laughing. My real dad was a Marine. He died overseas. This guy's just my mom's husband. He said it like I was a distant memory. A footnote. A placeholder. I didn't say anything. I didn't walk into the kitchen. I just stood there for a while, in the hallway, staring at the family photos on the wall. Only two included me, both small and older. I walked back outside and sat on the steps. Duke lay down beside me, sensing something was wrong. I told Margaret what I heard later that evening. She sighed. He's just trying to impress his friends, she said. You know how teenagers are. Do you think of me as just your husband? I asked. She looked tired. You're their stepfather. It's not the same. That stuck with me. It's not the same. The next few months followed a pattern. I'd come home to find the three of them, Margaret, Caleb, and Grace, huddled around dinner. Sometimes I'd be included. Other times I'd eat alone. Grace, once glued to my side during bedtime stories, now avoided me. The dad was gone. She called me Lowell again. I tried not to let it show, but it crushed me every time. When I asked Margaret about it, she always said the same thing: they're growing up. I started noticing things missing from the garage. Tools, mostly. At first, I thought I was just misplacing them. Then parts started going missing: fuses, connectors, even a tire iron. I found my truck's battery disconnected one morning. Another time, the air brake cables had been tampered with. Nothing fatal, but enough to set off alarms in my head. So I installed a camera above the garage door and one in the driveway. The footage was clear. It was Caleb. He was going through my truck in the middle of the night, digging through compartments, yanking on wires like he was looking for something. I watched the clip 3 times before I could bring myself to breathe again. When I showed Margaret, she stared at the screen and said nothing for a long time. Finally, he's just angry. Maybe if you were home more, he'd act differently. That was when something snapped in me. I had worked my whole life. Paid every bill. Covered every field trip, doctor's visit, birthday gift, emergency repair. The roof over their heads, the food in the fridge, all of it came from long nights and long roads. But somehow, I was still not home enough. I started keeping a folder. Every receipt. Every bank statement. Every record of payment, groceries, car repairs, household bills. I printed out screenshots of text messages, downloaded footage from the cameras, started writing down things they said to me, or about me, when they didn't think I could hear. I didn't know what I was collecting at first. I just knew I needed to have it. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That this had all been real once. Things got worse. Margaret became more distant. Always on her phone, always leaving the room when I came in. I once overheard her laughing with a friend, saying, "Lowell's harmless. He's just one of those quiet types who doesn't get how things work these days." Grace stopped wearing the necklace I bought her for her 16th birthday, a small gold pendant. I found it later in the kitchen drawer, under a pile of coupons. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said it didn't match her style anymore. She had started dating someone new, a college boy named Jasper. He came from money, drove a newer BMW, and wore polished shoes even when it rained. They were planning an engagement. I wasn't told. I found out through Facebook. A photo of Grace with a ring, standing on our back porch. The caption read, "So thankful for my family and for Dad, who would be so proud." Below it, someone commented, "What a beautiful tribute to your father's memory." There were photos of the party. I wasn't in any of them. Not even the background. They had used my grill, my lights, my lawn. But not my name. I asked Margaret about it later that week. Her response? It wasn't intentional. You're gone so often, and it was just a small thing. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just walked out to the garage, sat on the floor beside Duke, and stared at the ceiling. I had been removed from my own life, gently, silently, and completely. And no one seemed to notice. After the engagement party I wasn't invited to, something inside me finally settled. Not in a defeated way, not bitterness or rage. Just clarity. I had spent years trying to earn a place in a home that didn't have space for me. Trying to be part of a family that had quietly voted me out. But I had one thing left. Control over what I built. I called Warren, my lawyer friend. We'd met years ago when I was expanding my trucking business. Warren was one of those practical, no fluff types. When I told him what had been going on, he didn't ask many questions. He just said, "I figured this day might come. I've got everything we need." We began meeting quietly. I'd swing by his office late at night after deliveries. We reviewed every asset, every account, every receipt I had meticulously collected. The house? In my name. The trucks? My business. The credit cards? Only I had authority. Even the utilities were in my company's name, a tax maneuver Warren had helped me with years back. And Margaret? She had never added her name to a single thing. She'd once told me she didn't want to lose her independence. It turned out she never had any claim in the first place. Warren and I drafted a full legal plan. Not just a divorce, but a clean extraction. Financially, emotionally, structurally. Every route closed. Every loophole sealed. Everything done quietly, legally, completely. And I kept going like nothing was wrong. I went to family dinners, watched movies in the living room, fixed the sink when it leaked again. Smiled when Grace talked about honeymoon options. I even offered to help with invitations. They never suspected a thing. Then came the day. A week before Grace's bridal shower, I told Margaret I had to leave for a long haul. Might be 3 or 4 days, I said. Lot of stops. She barely looked up from her phone. Drive safe. I drove an hour out of town and parked at a friend's farm. Duke and I slept in the truck that night. Just like the old days. The next morning, 3 couriers arrived at the house. Each with a thick envelope. The first, divorce documents. It outlined everything: financial separation, asset protection, legal custody of Duke, in case they tried anything. Attached were photos, statements, and signed affidavits about the tampering with my truck. The second, a formal notice of eviction. Margaret was living in a house she didn't own, with utilities she didn't pay for, using money she didn't earn. The third, financial termination. Every joint card closed. Every business tie severed. Every login and account reset. By 10 a.m., Margaret's phone was buzzing. By 10:30, my inbox was full. Her messages went from shock to pleading to fury. How could you do this? Where am I supposed to go? You're ruining everything. I didn't answer. Caleb messaged me a day later. Said I was being dramatic, that I was just mad because I'm not his real son. Grace sent an email asking if I could reconsider, not for her, but for Jasper's family. She said this made them look unstable. None of them asked how I was. None of them apologized. Warren advised me to stay quiet, but I didn't need to. Because the truth speaks for itself. We had also prepared a document, a polite, factual outline, and mailed it to Jasper's parents. No accusations. Just facts, financial support provided by me, photos of the engagement party held on my property without my knowledge, the long history of financial misuse and disrespect. 2 days later, the wedding was postponed. Then cancelled. I drove past the house a week after the envelopes arrived. A moving truck sat in the driveway. Margaret stood outside on the porch, staring at the lawn like it didn't belong to her anymore. Because it didn't. I didn't move back into the house. I thought about it, briefly. It was paid off. It was mine. But every corner held echoes. Ghosts of memories that used to mean something: birthdays, holidays, Sunday mornings on the porch. I couldn't walk into the kitchen without hearing Caleb's laughter from years ago, before it turned to silence. I couldn't sit at the table without picturing Grace, 5 years old, drawing hearts with my name in the middle. So I sold it. Bought a smaller place closer to my truck yard, 1-story, big lot out back for Duke. I built a shed to work on my rigs and planted another tree. Not for anyone this time. Just for the view. The business is doing well. I have 4 full-time drivers now and 2 rigs I lease out to smaller companies. I still take a few short runs myself, mostly because I enjoy it. The road never judged me. Never forgot who I was. Never asked for more than I could give. As for Margaret? She moved in with her brother. Vernon, the one who was supposed to walk Grace down the aisle. Last I heard, she's working the front desk at a dental office. I don't ask around. People tell me things, but I don't chase updates. Caleb took a job at a tire shop in town. College didn't stick, said it wasn't for him. Sometimes I see him in passing. He pretends not to notice. I let him. Grace tried to reach out a few times. A birthday email. A message on Father's Day. Thinking of you, it said once. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just let it sit. It's not that I hate them. I don't. I just don't owe them any more pieces of myself. Peace is a strange thing. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes in small ways: a quiet evening, a fixed truck, Duke curled up on the floor snoring. It comes from knowing that you survived something that should have broken you, and somehow, you're better for it. Sometimes I still think about those early days. The excitement of starting something. The hope. The love I gave freely because I believed it would be enough. But here's the truth. Being a father isn't about biology. It's about time. About showing up. About consistency. About listening. And sometimes, it's about walking away when no one else remembers what you gave. I didn't lose a family. I lost a role I was never meant to play forever. I've started talking to someone. Her name's Caroline. She runs a breakfast diner off Route 81. We met when I stopped in for coffee. She asked about Duke. He laid his head on her feet like he'd known her forever. We talk most mornings now. She likes that I build things with my hands. She likes that I listen more than I speak. And she thinks truckers are the backbone of this country. I've never heard that before. I'll leave you with this. If you're reading this and you've been made to feel small because of your job, your silence, your giving, know this. Kindness is not weakness. Loyalty is not foolish. And honest work is never something to be ashamed of. Sometimes the people you love the most will walk past your worth like it's invisible. That doesn't mean you stop giving. It just means you start giving to yourself. Duke's nudging my arm again, time for his evening walk. He's older now, but his eyes still sparkle like they used to. And for the first time in years, when I look ahead, it feels like something worth walking toward. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.